Stewart A. Swerdlow.
Janet Diane Moya Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the first week of May 2016.
You know, if this was May 7th, you could actually do a nude one.
Why?
I'll tell you later. Go ahead.
Anyway, it is kind of cold out for May, isn't it?
Well,
Must be global warming, because we were freezing. Anyway, shall I get started? Shall I just get started?
Depends. Are you wearing your Depends?
Yes.
Okay.
I already used them. Anyway, who eats oatmeal for breakfast? Do you eat oatmeal for breakfast?
No, I did test oatmeal.
Now, oatmeal, first of all, it's a, would you call it a wheat product or a grain product?
No, it's a grain.
It's a grain, yes. And it's
an
an
oat,
intestinal irritant. It upsets the intestinal tract.
For
But
many
that's
people.
another story. There's a lot of people eat oatmeal for breakfast. That's what they eat. But did you know that a man in Brooklyn has filed a lawsuit against Quaker Oats, claiming that their advertising is false, deceptive, and misleading? Well, duh, everybody's is. Because, he says, in the oatmeal is the carcinogenic substance glyphosate, which they use to grow the oats. And it's an herbicide that the World Health Organization declared was probably carcinogenic to humans in 2015. Probably. And it has been linked to a number of cancers, including breast cancer, thyroid, kidney, pancreas, liver, bladder, and myeloid leukemia, just as a little menu for cancer. And the company is being sued, Quaker Oats, for $5 million because they use this to grow the oats and is sprayed on the oats during harvest. Now, Quaker Oats claims that their products are 100% natural, but they're not. Well, because the oats are natural, it's what they put on them that isn't. So I guess they can get away with it for that. But you know what else?
What?
That's not the only thing that has the poison in it. Which, by the way, that poison is one of the world's most widely used herbicides, and it's found in Roundup, which was made by Monsanto in 1970, where all the farmers used that.
Well, Roundup is very expensive.
Well, and it's also known to cause, besides all those cancers, endocrine disruptors for humans, means that it upsets your hormonal system. But all of you who like to eat breakfast out there, now that I've taken away your oatmeal, it's not just the oatmeal. Whole wheat bagels, organic multi-bagels, whole grain bread, whole wheat, organic whole wheat bread, all the hot cereals, large eggs, organic, cage-free, antibiotic-free large eggs, all have this poison in them.
Well, some places, wherever this guy
Organic coffee creamer, organic soy, we shouldn't use soy anyway. So, like I've always said, you can have organic poison too.
You can?
Yeah, I mean, just because something's organic doesn't mean it's good for you. So you have to really know where you're getting. So that's why I tell people, know the source of your food and go to the farmers directly. But you shouldn't be eating oatmeal anyway.
Now, and the other thing is, if you have the correct mind pattern, then you won't attract the poisons in your body and it won't affect you.
That's correct. And don't try to test that on me.
No.
Anyway.
Too late.
Well, now it's on camera, and if anything happens to me, guess who's going to be in trouble?
You. Because you didn't have the correct
Yeah,
mind
because
pattern.
I'll be dead. But you know what? When I'm dead, I'm going to haunt you until you
But you didn't
join me.
You didn't have the correct mind pattern to let the poisons go through.
Okay, now you see what I have to live with, people. She's a lunatic. Anyway.
What you see in others is what's in you. Go ahead.
I see fields of green.
Read. Read.
Okay.
I have a ton of stories.
Yeah, because this one is serious, so really, cut it out. Now, how many times have I told you about Fort Bragg in North Carolina? The military base, and what did I say? It's like mind control central. Well, just the other day, an Afghanistan veteran by the name of Jonathan Simpson, the Simpsons, remember? Now, he was arrested because he was convicted or accused of first-degree rape, first-degree kidnapping, and sexual battery. He's 26 years old, He kidnapped his victim, who was also 26 years old, and carried out the sexual assault in Fort Bragg Boulevard, and was arrested in Fort Bragg with the assistance of Fort Bragg military police. Now, here's the thing. They don't say if the victim was male or female. They just said it was a person in his military unit, right? And so, that's very telling when they don't say who it is.
It is.
I would say so.
But then they're not telling.
But this Simpson guy has been separated from his wife, who he's been married to for 5 years. And as I said, Fort Bragg has been the scene over the last 20, 25, 30 years, maybe more, of murder, rape, shootings, etc. I remember back in the late 70s, I believe it was, there was a military commander of Fort Bragg whose family was murdered, and he said that strange people came in with holding candles and they murdered him, and then they accused him of murder, and he said that wasn't what happened. And then I don't know, it was a whole long, it was like 40 years ago.
And what state is this again?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Here's the Carolinas again.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just thought I'd share that with you. And get this, Princeton University, you know,
Prince?
Brainiac and all that. Guess what they said?
What?
What if free will doesn't actually exist? Because they said, they found through their studies that free will might be an illusion. And it's a trick played on us by our own brains. And they said this was proposed 20 years ago by psychologists Dan Wegner and Thalia Wheatley. And they said this illusion may be central to developing a belief in free will and in turn motivating punishment. So here's the thing. If now they're telling you free will is an illusion and they can prove that's true, then mind control and programming are fine because there's no free will anyway. Right? Makes sense to me. Moving along. Let's talk about the Obama administration because they are trying alternative ways to bring more Syrians and other refugees into the United States this year. Now, they're already preparing to take in 10,000 Syrians this year, and they hope to increase that, where is that, to 100,000 by the end of 2017.
Where are they going to put them?
Probably
Fort Bragg.
in your backyard, people.
Fort Bragg.
And so, maybe they should put them in Fort Bragg. But it says that they're going to pursue alternative avenues for the refugees, such as student and work visas, expanded family reunification programs. Remember when they sent planes down to Central America to pick up the children of the immigrants and bring them here?
Right.
Same kind of
But
thing.
we know we have never heard much more about that after that, did we?
No, because it was
did they do?
exposed, and so they dropped the story. The news was told not to report it anymore.
But what happened to all those children?
Yeah, what happened to those children? And also they're going to have visa for medical reasons. So like if I have a headache, I'm on a Syria, get a medical visa, come on in.
Oh, if you're Muslim, because I reported on the other one that if they were a Christian, they wouldn't let them in.
Now it says, here's the interesting thing. It's unclear whether the refugees can be properly vetted. They can't be.
100,000 of them?
They can't process 1,000 people now, let alone 100,000. And so the State Department said that they are going to get a program to allow U.S. citizens and permanent residents to file refugee applications for their Syrian family members. Do you have any Syrian family members?
Not at this
Anybody?
point.
Because,
I probably pay people that have Syrian family members, though.
Yeah, And of course, they're going to waive the requirements for asylum seekers who are assumed, not proven, assumed to have fled their homes quickly. Interesting. Now, back in November, the House passed the bill to enhance Syrian refugee screening. They wanted to screen them,
Well, that makes
but
sense.
the Democrats stalled the legislation. And last month, a Republican representative, Michael McCall from Texas, said that the Syrian refugee crisis risked becoming a terrorist Trojan horse. Well, that's the only true thing about this whole story.
And we've talked about that before many times.
And so the U.S. and Canada, by the way, are forcing the law to allow more refugees in. They're looting national integrity, just like in the EU. Now let's go to Europe, since we're on that topic, and let's talk about the Hadron Collider.
Okay.
Because, they've been having a lot of issues, on and off and on and off. Well, guess what? The Hadron Collider is out of action again. And do you know why?
UFOs.
No. Researchers,
Aliens.
no, listen to this story. Okay, this is like a multi-billion-dollar reactor complex, right? Listen to the story. The researchers said a weasel, gnawed through a high-voltage cable power lines, which power the strongest scientific instrument.
I don't believe that. It's gonna
So,
kill the weasel.
what was it, like outside, like, oh, can you get the extension cord? We need more, we're going to plug it outside, and the weasel came and chewed on it.
Yeah, weasel
Seriously?
can't get in there, and a weasel isn't gonna do that.
But wait,
It's aliens.
so the machines shut down, and they discovered the charred remains of the poor little weasel next to a 66 kilovolt chewed cable.
Not gonna happen.
Again,
Not
why
gonna
was the
happen.
cable outside for the weasel
With a
to
weasel?
chew?
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
Why was it an exposed cable?
Aliens.
And they said it could take days to repair, maybe longer until it's fully operational. But the collider has undergone more than 2 years of upgrades and could give it double the power, but it could be out of action until mid-May. I think it's good. Let it be out of action. And it said, here's the other thing. It said, the animal only made it as far as the electrical facilities and not the tunnels. Okay, what tunnels? What tunnels are you talking about? And then it said, here's a cover-up. The weasel died in the incident and little remains of it. Well, that's like Osama bin Laden.
But they
You
already
just dumped him in the ocean, bye.
they already said he was charred up to nothing.
Well, they said little remains of the poor little weasel. So there's no evidence that that actually happened.
This is
Yeah.
crazy story.
So experts are carrying out repairs. Now in 2009, the collider was taken out by a bird. How? How
Maybe
could that
a thunderbird.
bird?
A thunderbird.
Okay, really, this sounds like a really sophisticated operation where woodland creatures can shut it down. Brilliant. And scientists at CERN promised, in quote, a new era of explorations of the secrets of nature, and the collisions began at twice the energy of the last phase. So I'll translate, opening up volumes and vortices to other dimensions. That's what they really mean. It was due to be running non-stop for the next few years. Yikes. And scientists are hoping that the extra energy will reveal particles and probably entities that have never been seen before and discover supersymmetry. Well, I think that the Kuiper Belt people have sabotaged them. I think the weasel was like a little alien in disguise.
I said it. I knew
Dressed
it.
like a weasel.
Aliens.
Was a furry person.
Oh, I have a story about
That's
a furry person.
Yeah.
This is an alien story. I'm sure
Okay,
of it.
so now let's move a little bit east to Middle East. And I call this strange bedfellows. Why? Because all the ISIS terrorist activity in the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt is causing Israel, Egypt, and the Palestinian militant group Hamas to form an unlikely alliance with each other. Now that's really interesting, isn't it? And Hamas deployed several hundred fighters to Gaza's border last week to stop the flow of ISIS. And that came days after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praised his country's decision to build a new barrier along the Egypt-Israel border, warning that we would have been overflowed by thousands of ISIS fighters from the Sinai. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't even let people with no shoes in Gaza get food, and they bombed the smithereens out of them. So no, that would not have happened. But all of this ISIS information and activity have given birth, they said, to the greatest cooperation between the militaries of Egypt and Israel since their 1979 peace deal, and both countries have confirmed that. Now, this is an interesting statement from Mohammed Sabri, an Egyptian journalist and author of a book on Islamic insurgency. And so what this Mohammed said about ISIS, they have genius strategists. If you study the map of their attacks, they obviously know what they're doing exactly, and it shows that they have a great deal of freedom of mobility. Well, how'd they get that? Who's training them? Who's funding them? How can they move around? Where are these strategists coming from? Little towns in Iraq? I don't think so.
I know we haven't heard any more about all the ISIS oil that they supposedly own.
But beyond all that, this whole area of the Sinai, where these all the journalists are prohibited from going there. So you can't get news from this area other than what the governments of Israel and Egypt tell you. Now, Israel considers the Islamic State a threat minimal. Minimal. Why? Because they created them. So, a colonel in the Sinai, who's an Israeli, said that, when will we become the target? Yeah, indeed. When will that'll never happen, as you know. Now, let's stay with the Israelis for a moment, because you know they've gotten a lot of bad press in the United States and the EU and all that stuff, right? So Netanyahu is finding friends in other parts of the world who have the same economic interests and enemies. So Netanyahu's government started free trade talks with China in March, negotiated favored nation status with Japan, and hosted Singapore's prime minister on the first visit to Israel. And Netanyahu is planning a summer tour of Africa. You don't want to go to Africa in the summer. Very bad idea. And even says that Arab countries are drawn closer to Israel over their shared fears of Iran. And of course, we know that Vladimir Putin has invited Netanyahu to Moscow to discuss their shared military concerns of Syria, and Israel and Russia are getting much closer together. And it says Israel must develop new alliances and tighten links to countries from which it was once estranged. Netanyahu dismissed Swedish criticism of Israel's anti-terror moves as immoral and stupid. That's politically correct for a political person. He stared down Brazil because they refused to allow a Jewish settler to become an ambassador to Brazil. He canceled a White House visit without informing the U.S. officials, and he declared Israel will never return the Golan Heights to Syria. So there. He just does whatever he wants, that little Netanyahu. He even got the Chinese tycoon Li Ka-shing to invest a lot of money in Israel's technology. Now, exports to the U.S. and Europe have declined from Israel, but Israel's exports to Asia rose by billions, and exports to China went from 1.3 billion to 3.2 billion. And they're growing closer to China, India, and Japan. And according to Danny Danon, Israel's UN ambassador, he said, many other countries want to learn about our technology, water desalination, and agriculture, and we're eager to help them, but we must expect some reciprocity. Israel's ambassador tweeted a thank you to India for abstaining on a UN human rights vote last July, and also siding with Kenya and Ethiopia, which also voted with Israel. So Israel is also military close right now to Greece, Cyprus, Romania, Georgia, and Armenia, and have secret ties, very close secret ties to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Qatar, and the unofficial Kurdistan, which they helped to create. Should I do this later or after your thing? That someone sent in.
It's up to you.
Well, I just want to mention, someone sent in that they found on Facebook these programming triggers.
It's not going to show.
Walt Disney, I don't know if you can see that. Walt Disney triggers. This is coming soon. It was on Facebook.
Yeah, you can't really.
Can you see that?
No, you just can see read the writing.
And then
you can't read. You can't see.
well, and then they have actually developed an Alice through the Looking Glass eyeshadow that you can get based on the movie that's coming out, so you can look like Alice in Wonderland.
Is there an Alice in Wonderland movie coming out?
Apparently.
So, and what's the point of all this?
The point is Disney programming activation.
Well, it's always out
And
there.
interdimensional.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It's always out there.